So we start getting towards the end of this deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Mark got killed on August 2nd. And then September 29th, Mikey gets killed.
Yeah.
And we're not done operating by any stretch, because we did a bunch more operations, but it was definitely winding down at that point.
Yeah.
We had to start thinking about redeployment.
Yeah.
And
we were all packed up. I remember, because we weren't out at Corregidor anymore.
Yeah, we had guys that were. You were one of the guys that had come back from Corregidor as we started trying to filter guys back to consolidate.
I was so mad I had to come back. I think about it every day when I feel this finger, because I cut my finger down to the bone, and they actually had to CASVAC me out to go get surgery on my finger, because they thought I was going to lose it, because we tried to work on it across the street at the aid station, which those guys are phenomenal combat medics over there. And when they were like, dude, we need a bird for you, you're going to lose your finger. Delta Platoon Commander and the Badger were like, dude, yeah, absolutely. So I went back, grabbed some gear, and, I feel that every day. It's just hard. Like, that was the only op I wasn't on. And every time we went out, I always said a group prayer for the guys. It didn't matter if it was like, hey, we have to go right now. Delta Platoon Commander or the Badger or someone would be like, hey, we got to get JP real quick. And I'd say a group prayer, and we'd roll. And that was the only one that I wasn't a part of. And, Mikey was my AW gunner. He was always next to me when I was doing my sniper overwatches, and he was next to me when I was rocking point, because you need an AW gunner. And JP might have gotten a little crazy towards the last half of the deployment and started walking point with the 300 Win Mag. And Mikey was there. And I wasn't there, And I don't know. So.
Well, the good news is you got to go home with him.
Yes. Yeah. Got to escort his body home. Which was unlike anything else, You're like, cool. You get to be a part of that. But also at the same time, you're like, this is really shitty to be a part of. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like, I wanted to be there and make sure everything went well. And I just remember us flying back and just staring at the flag over his coffin, And some guys would, lay next to the casket, and we'd lean up against it. And yeah, it was just getting to bring him home was important to be a part of that. But, everybody felt so much guilt. And we all try to keep each other accountable on that. It's like, hey, man, this is war. Mikey saved a lot of lives, and we made an impact over there. And so it wasn't like it was for nothing. And what he did, the guys' lives that he saved, they all now have families and kids. A couple of them had kids. Mikey had the easy out. And just like he always did, he never took the easy road. He took the harder road, the road that would actually make a difference. And this time it was the lives of those guys around him. And it was just the ride back. You're just thinking about all that. And, it was also kind of a blur as well. Like I remember, just rubbing the flag, And the flag's always been very important to me. I remember graduating Hell Week and just seeing the flag fly, and then you hear it in the national anthem, and just seeing it over one of your boys' caskets was just brought a new level of connection and love for that amazing flag that we have. And I just remember I just sat there and I would rub the flag. Just rub it, because I had flags that I carried with me on every deployment, every mission. I still do that sometimes. Like my wife, Amanda, I'll be doing something and I'll find a flag and I just kind of rub it. And she's like, she knows, you know, she's like, that's like my little trigger, you know, my trigger point. I just started thinking about things again. And, you know, I've taught my kids, Aiden, Cora, and Nola, to love and respect the flag. Like whenever they see a flag, they're like, Daddy, it's your favorite thing. Daddy, it's Daddy's favorite thing, you know. They love getting American flag t-shirts and shorts. They saw some American flag cowboy boots. Of course, my daughters want those now. And I've been honest with my kids, you know. My boy Aiden, I call him my bonus boy. He's my stepson. I love him just like mine. You know, he asked me about the flag and why is it so important to me. And I've told him, I'm like, you know, it's been draped over a lot of caskets of my buddies that didn't make it home, that were killed overseas. And he's such a special kid. And he was just like, that makes sense. And, you know, and he sees a flag, and I explained to him why a flag's at half-mast. And he's even said, hey, I'm sorry that flag's at half-mast. Like, he doesn't know why, but he knows something happened. And he knows what it does to me and guys like you. The flag's at half-mast, something horrible has happened, and he knows that, you know. And so I just remember, you know, I think he went to Bethesda, and then we continued on to San Diego. And just tried to mentally reset for a couple of days. You know, you're back in San Diego. It's awesome, but it just didn't.
Yeah.
It had nothing, you know, because you knew you're waiting to receive one of your boys' bodies, you know. So it didn't matter where we were. It didn't matter that we were in San Diego. Like, we didn't want to be in San Diego. We wanted to be back overseas still, you know.
When we went to Habania to put him on the bird, and casket was open.
Yeah.
And we were just filing by.
Yeah.
And I remember you were ahead of me. And we were walking into like a mill van.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a one-way thing.
It was a cold mill van.
It was a cold mill van. And you were ahead of me. You know, you were literally right ahead of me. And you walked in, and you know, you took your last look at Mikey, and you put your hand on the casket, and you turned around, and I was right. You know, we were just looking at each other, and when I saw your face, the look in your face, I felt super worried because I could tell that you were tore up. And I said to myself, hey man, Jocko, you need to get your fucking game together right now and be strong.
And you were. And that's what we needed. And guys like the Delta Platoon Commander, super, super strong for us. But you saw them hurt. I mean, everybody's hurting, you know. It was, you know, that deployment, you can't not be close with somebody, you know. And especially someone like Mikey, man. Like, he knows I like my sleep. And so he would make sure I didn't get my sleep just because Mikey didn't sleep. And our rooms were right next to each other. You know, I was back in this corner. He was over in this other corner, and there was a sheet of plywood between the two of us. And you know, he was always like, what's up, Holmes? He's like, hey, Holmes, you sleeping? I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to, Holmes. And he's like, cool. And he'd open up the tarp, you know, the little cami, you know, tarp that I had over for my door. He'd just come in and sit on the edge of the bed. I'm like, what's up, buddy? He's like, nothing. Just want, you know, he just talk about family stuff, and you could tell a lot was on his mind. And you know. And he's like, hey, you want to watch the newest episode of Thirsty Traveler? My parents sent me the Thirsty Traveler. I was like, no, but I'm awake, so I guess we're going to watch the Thirsty Traveler. Because there's a couple times where I'd be like, hey, bro, like, I'm trying to sleep. Like, just go do your own thing. You know what I mean? And he had a little hole that he carved into the plywood between our rooms. And he would crack Kim lights and push them through. And they'd fall right next to where I was sleeping. And I'm like, I'm going to strangle this guy. But it was my boy Mikey, you know? Like, he was my boy. You know, we were real close in the workup. And then obviously deployment, you know, we used to ride street bikes together. And anyway, so deployment, he was just fun. It was just, I say all that say that is just, he did that with everybody.
Yeah.
It was hard not to be close to him. It was, you know, there's a different connection when you're legitimately in war with your boys. You know, that's why all the Army and Marine guys that we served with, like, anytime I still see some of them once in a while. I randomly ran into one of them up in Ohio. And I was just like, dude. And I was up there on a sales trip, and I just ditched my sales team guys, you know, because I wanted to hang out with them, you know. And then there's been other trips where same thing, another one. My boy Nick Hobbs, you know, I ran into him. I was with my sales team, and it's like, come on, you know. It's just that connection is just, it's hard to explain. I mean, you guys know how it is doing jiu-jitsu and combat sports where you're rolling with guys and you legitimately, you're helping guys cut weight and just all this stuff. Like, there's that bond and that connection. Take that, times it by 1,000, and then add some more, and that's the connection you get with these boys in combat. So it was just real hard. I mean, and part of it is that's just who I am. Like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I just connect and attach to people very closely, and you know, Mikey is just it was really hard,
and that's the look that I saw on your face. Yeah. That's the look that I saw on your face. I was like, and I mean. Obviously, I know what kind of personality you have. I knew what kind of personality you have. And I saw that look of devastation. And it was the first time, because we'd been together. I mean, we heard the news, but it was the first time that I saw your look where it was almost like that was the first time that you really realized that Mikey was gone. That was it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm right or wrong, but from the look in your face, I was like, okay. He is devastated right now, and that's what I thought to myself. And again, I mean, I saw you as my little brother. I mean, for sure, I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory way in any sense, but I literally saw you as like my blood little brother.
Yeah.
And so to see you just devastated like that, and I knew that you were looking at me like, okay, what's Jocko gonna do? And I knew that I knew what I had to do.
Yeah.
Was I had to show like, listen. This is what we do. Yeah. This is who we are. Get your shit together, Jocko, and handle this. And not saying I didn't, not saying I was a robot, but I knew that I had to maintain strength.
You have to.
And find that so that you guys could go, all right, we're going to be okay.
What's been pounded into our minds since Buds? Win the fight. Like, if you're in a fight, win the fight. Win the firefight, right? And right then, that our fight was you had to keep the guys together. You know, that's why it's always self-aid, buddy aid, right? You get shot, you get hurt, you take care of yourselves, because if you're in a firefight, your boys are going to win the firefight first before they can take care of you. That's just part of it. That's how we operate. And you had to do that.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, that you're in that highest leadership position, like, yeah, it just... And the same thing, like, I had to get myself together, just because other guys in the platoon, like, I thought, or at least I felt like they looked up to me as well. And, especially after that deployment, you had to keep your stuff together, and it's just a weird, I don't know, it was the first time I ever experienced that, at that level. So, yeah.
And then, obviously, Mikey's funeral, which you were at, I obviously wasn't there because, like you said, we were still, most of us were still in Iraq, and had to finish out the deployment and do the turnover with the guys that were coming in from Team 5, and that was another thing was just I talk about it all the time, like even when we were talking prior to recording today, I was like, hey, this is kind of blurry to me, like. Yeah. I was asking you who went home with you. I mean, I was like, okay, you know, these guys are gone. Okay, here's what I got to do. I got to focus on the next thing. I like couldn't get dragged down or think about that anymore because I had to, like you said, I had to do my work. I had to do my job. Yeah. And, you know, I think that's the good thing is for guys that were able to go to the funeral and everything, it's like you get to get that like bit of closure. Yeah. Well, a lot of, you know, the guys that were still over there, we didn't get that, you know, until we got home. Yeah. We got home and you know, get to go see Mikey's grave and meet with his family and get to know his family and get to be together again as a troop. And so all those things are kind of how you go from that anguish, or I should say for me, the buried anguish of, you know, that you have to bury on deployment. When you get home, you go, okay, now we can get this stuff out and discuss it, and at least maybe not discuss it. I don't need to say anything to you, JP. I don't need to talk to you about it. You know, I know, but we can settle it, you know? Yeah. And I think when guys don't do that, when guys don't think about it, when they keep it buried all the time, that's when it can be really problematic. Is, you know, you gotta face the fact, and you gotta be okay with it eventually that, hey, this is what happened. Yeah. And, you know, when we talk about like who's, I guess you could say, you know, who's to blame. And I told this to multiple people. Matter of fact, I told everybody. You want to blame somebody? You blame the fucking moosh. Yeah. They're the ones that did this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what happened. Yeah. And what we're going to do is
kill more of them.
Continue to go kill more of them. Yeah. So that deployment obviously was a game changer for us. Yeah. For a huge impact on our lives and you know, everything really that we're doing to this day. And you got home. I moved over to, you know, take over the training command there. Yep. You started another workup, but you got hurt.
Yeah. So
hurt your shoulder.
You know, I was just the desert. I was smoked. You know, just coming home from that deployment. You know, initially just still kind of messed up. Well, not still kind of. I was messed up with the whole Mikey thing. I remember I went and told Yarborough, I was like, hey, I just want to go Paycom. Like, just let me reset. He's like, okay. And then he knows, and he knows me. He's like, all right, cool, yeah, roger that, knowing that's not what he's going to do. And I'm driving back up to Sacramento on leave. He's like, hey, I know you said you want to go to Paycom, but, yeah, we need to get after it again. So you're going to go to Iraq again or possibly Afghanistan. I was like, yeah, roger that. Yeah, I don't even know why I said that. You know, like it was one of those things where you're just like, you know, I'm going to go do Paycom, go to Thailand. Were you going
to stay in Delta Platoon?
No, they switched it all up. So
I remember that, but there were a couple guys that stayed there.
Yeah, yeah. So, no, I was going to be Alpha or Bravo platoon.
So after our deployment with TU Bruiser, they took it, instead of keeping it together, because there was all this experience in these two platoons, instead of keeping it together, they just split everybody apart into different platoons. So other platoons would have these guys in their platoons with a ton of combat experience.
Guys were pissed.
Yeah, everyone was pissed.
Like super pissed. But so we start workup and ripped my shoulder out of joint, my right one. And it was a bad one. Not like I'd done that multiple times before. Like, I mean, we're out at Nyland, doing our desert warfare, getting it on, and my shoulder came out, and I just relocate the shoulder and, suck it up a little bit and keep going. And this was a bad one, so ended up having to have surgery. Like, all right, cool, you have surgery, you'll miss a little bit of workup, but we'll catch it up and we'll get going. And when I had surgery, they punctured my brachial nerve or did some damage to it, so I would actually drop stuff. And you can't be in an active duty platoon when you're dropping stuff, randomly, because I was at rehab and I couldn't grab onto stuff, or I would just drop stuff. So then they pulled me, and I went to Buds for a little bit as an indoc instructor, and had a good time over there. Learned a lot about just professionalism, and things change and evolve, and so went over to TradeEt with you guys, and you and Z. You guys pulled me over there, and it was awesome. Stepped into assaults, and where we're doing all the CQC and urban warfare training, and Trade It was awesome. You know, I'm working for you again, which is, I'm like, yes, get after
As
it.
it should be.
Yes, absolutely. And I learned a lot at Trade It about good leadership and bad leadership. You know, there's some guys at Trade It that hadn't really done anything, and Jocko was pushing those guys out of there. Not in a bad way, but just like, hey man, like, you're not going to be, you know, the war's really been going on for a while. Training's, you know, combat is getting intense. Training needs to be intense, and it needs to come from guys that actually have experience or are willing to listen to the guys that have the experience and apply that, you know. And so it really shaped and changed the platform of training for all the West Coast SEAL teams. And so I was super proud to be a part of that. And I learned a lot about leadership and growth. You know, I learned good bosses and bad bosses, and actually ended up becoming the LPO for Mount, or I guess it's now called Stout. You know, so I ran all the urban warfare training for a year, and that was awesome. I got to learn how to work with guys and actually manage guys, you know, effectively. Like, and which it's funny, you know, you get on the outside and you're like, man, what you do on the outside is no big deal, you know, compared to the teams where you're like in charge of like 100+ role players and 17 instructors and logistics for travel and hotel and making sure all the training is set up and managing the guys that need to be talking with the other units that we're talking to. And at this time, I'm still only 24, you know, maybe 25. I don't even think I was 25. Oh, no, I was 25, you know, and maybe. And so I just learning a lot about that. And that was pretty cool. And then I spent a lot of time at CQC, which every good team guy loves.
Of course.
Urban warfare, land warfare, and CQC, you know. And, you know, I had some really good bosses over there as well. My boy, Chucky, he's still in, so I'll respect his name as well. We actually lived together, and I worked for him. And that was a huge lesson of, you know, which we all have in the teams, is balancing personal and professional, because the teams are very tight. You know, you could go out and drinking with your bosses, hang out with them, and then at work the next day. But different when you're living with somebody. And, man, I was late for work one day. We're on the road, and I was just like, hey, man, I'm running a little late. He's like, you better not be late, you know, something along those lines. So I get there, and I'm like a minute late, right? Dude. I ended up on like restriction, not like really full on restriction, like military thinks about it, but it was like, he was like, yeah, you got to do this. So basically I was just a little go-to guy where I got to do all the work, you know, and it was good though, you know, because I expected that of him. Like I knew, like I made a mistake. I got to pay the man. And he, you know, I put him in a hard position, you know, which was unfair to him. And, you know, you can't be doing that to your boys, you know, like you can't take advantage of like, oh, well, my buddy's my boss, so I can do this. No, my buddy's my boss, so I'm going to work even harder for him. And, you know, and that's what, you know, I was, again, a little upset with myself. And, you know, there's a couple of times like he'd have to sit me down and we'd just talk. He's like, hey, man, you know, you can't be doing this stuff, or you need to be focused on this. And he really helped with my professional development, you know, really helped and helped me learn a lot of stuff that I was able to apply to the outside and be successful. And, you know, he's still a great friend of mine. He's got a beautiful family, and it's awesome seeing him grow over the years.
Yeah, he's still kicking ass in the teams.
Dude, he's a legit boss. Like the type of guy you're like, I really want to work for him, you know? And so I just took a lot of the stuff that I learned from him and I've applied it to the outside, and it's been awesome.